everybody, welcome back to Off Script. Hopefully you really enjoyed the first episode. We're back here for episode 2. I've got the East Coast Iniesta, Mr. Lewis Wright, with me again. How are you doing, Righty?
I am fantastic, especially given that nickname.
So good to have you with us again. Would you like to introduce our second guest?
Yeah, our second guest. On last week's podcast, we said that we was going to have a double whammy. Unfortunately, we didn't get the second person. He's busy fitting a new kitchen, I believe, is what I've been told. So it is the former number 1 at Boston United, Mr. Aaron Butcher, aka the Godfather to my kids. So we won't call him Godfather too many times throughout the episode. All right, Butch, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, very well, thanks, gents. Can't complain. You know, I think everyone's in the same boat at the minute, but yeah, all's good this end, thank you. Awesome
stuff. So you checked out Off Script last week. You was buzzing to make an appearance. We've got a bit of a running order for the episode today. Obviously, it's going to cover quite a bit. We might go into a bit more detail on some certain subjects. I've also got the stats on you again, courtesy of shout out once again for Christian James at Boston United Stats legend. On Twitter. Yeah, the legend himself. So let's get down to it, and let's talk about life at the minute. Where you're at with a few things. Obviously, it's a nice snowy day here in Boston. I don't know about Peterborough. Just give us a bit of a intro about where you're at the minute, really.
Yeah, so just like most people at the minute, finding it challenging, should we say. Luckily, I'm able to go in as a key worker, so I'm sure we'll cover it a bit later on in the podcast, but I'm a unqualified teacher at a primary school in Peterborough. So I'm in full-time, which is really helping, if I'm honest, getting me out of the house, trying to be as normal as can be. Missing football, but at the same time, I'm doing a uni degree on the side of my job. So I've got my hands full at the minute, and to some extent, not playing football's given me that little bit more time to concentrate on what uni work and stuff. But yeah, always well. So I can't really complain too much.
Awesome stuff. Well, that's sort of the boring bit out of the way, mate, isn't it? All right, let's get to the juicy stuff. Let's start right at the beginning. Where did it start for Aaron Butcher? Grassroots, the pathway. Who got you into football?
Well, I started when I was about 6. A local football club in Whittlesea, which is near Peterborough, called Coach Crusaders. They were having tryouts for under 7s, I think it was, and at that time they had enough players for outfield. So one of the dads said, "Oh, Aaron, do you want to have a go in goal?" And it was raining and muddy, and I did a session with one of the parents, and I loved it. You know, I got filthy. Dad hated it, but I loved it, and it sort of went from there. So stayed at Coates till I was about 11. Won pretty much everything from the Peterborough Junior. I think it was Junior Youth and Alliance League, I think, back then. And then sort of we had 1 or 2 players. A good friend of mine, Luke, who went off to Cambridge United. He was in their academy from the age of 7, I think it was, and he went off, and a lot of the team sort of separated. And then from there went into a team called Crowland, which is just up the road from where I'm from, and stayed there till I was about 14. And then that's when Peterborough United started back up, and sort of the pathway changed slightly.
Awesome. I bet your mum wasn't very keen about you playing in goal, was she?
No, hated it. even to this day, she moans about getting mucky, but at the minute I'm playing on 4G, so the home games are all right. It's just getting the nice burns you get diving around.
Yeah, black scuffs.
Yeah.
In knees. So that did you wash you with that Crowland in places? Did you have trials anywhere?
Yeah, I think at 13, I think I had a trial at Boston. I think it was at Boston High School, around from the old ground as it now.
Yeah.
Is it high school? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that again, it was absolutely chucking it down, and it was wet and it was windy. And I remember coming down the steps, playing a 90-minute game, and to be honest, I can't remember how I did. Obviously not well enough because it didn't go any further. That was at under 13, I think. And then at 14, I trials at Forest. Was at the grassroots over at Grantham, and then got put into the academy for about 6 weeks. Absolutely loved it. The setup there, I don't know if you've ever been, but was phenomenal. It was just nothing like I'd never seen before. Playing in the dome. We had Chris Fairclough was there. He was I think he was 16s manager at the time, but he was overlooking the trialists and whatnot. And Barry Richardson was a goalkeeper coach. And I remember it clearly. I loved it. It was brilliant. I did really well. But at that age, I was a little bit overweight. And to put it frank, I can remember him calling me and my dad in the office, and he was like, look, I think it was just an excuse back then, but it was like, look, you need to lose a bit of weight. And that was how it was, to be honest. I didn't go any further, then went back to the 14s at Crowland, and then that's when Peterborough United started back up. So I went for trials with Posh, got accepted into the under 15s for the following season, and was there for 2 years.
Awesome. Was you always a tall goalkeeper? I know it's obviously a cliche thing about the whole you're too small to be a keeper, which obviously Paul Bastock and other top-notch keepers have broken the mould of that. Was you always a tall kid growing up?
Yeah, don't know where I get it from though, because my dad isn't quite tall. My granddad was very tall. Both my granddads actually. Bless them. Yeah, they were really tall. So I'm glad I got those genes. And just the frame, and I remember the frame and the sheer presence of me back then, and talking and communicating with defenders and teammates, even at a young age. I would never shut up. I remember my mate's parents used to say, I've got earache from Aaron shouting and screaming, and in my eyes it was just part of the game. I remember like under 11s to down to 8, I was bored in goal because we had such a good team. We was hammering teams like 8-9-0 every week, and I think for me that was the only way how I kept on the ball and aware of what was going around me, because it's one of the biggest traits as a goalkeeper, you know.
Was there ever a time when you was in goal and you're like, it is freezing, it's freezing cold, I'm getting mucky, sometimes might be even bored if you're getting clean sheets? Was there any part of it at any time during your development where you thought, yeah, I want to go and play outfield?
I remember one game, just thinking about it now, we played Orton Wasps, I think it was, in a cup game. This was when I was at Crowland, I think under 12s or 13s, and we won 26-0. And I felt I literally, I don't think I touched the ball all game. It must have been a goal kick where I just passed it out, and that day it was wet and it was windy and it was chucking it down, but I loved it. I was bored, yes, but being outfield of me back then just consisted of too much running. It's a bit different. It's a bit different now, because I look after myself, so I could probably manage it. But back then I was in no shape to want to run around and, do all the work that all the outfielders do. I'll just stick to being in net, thank you.
Just a quick one, right? You hear so many stories of goalkeepers that used to be strikers when they were younger, or you used to play outfield. It's very rare that you hear that you started in goal and you stayed in goal. So that's quite rare. You hardly hear that.
Yeah, I have. To be fair, Butch, I might have told you about it. I have a mate locally, and he was a terrific goalkeeper, one of the best goalkeepers who I'd played alongside, and he got to a stage where he just went, enough's enough. I'm bored. I want a bit of the scoring goals. I want to feel what it feels like to. Okay, keepers get a lot of satisfaction out of making saves and getting the clean sheets, which obviously you did on that 26-0 victory. Yeah. But there's no stats like that coming up, by the way. And he had enough of it, and he ended up playing locally as a striker, and he was banging in goals. So it's that decision. But I think kudos to you for you knew you was a goalkeeper. and you stuck with it, and that's probably why you got to the levels which you have done.
Yeah, I think with that as well, like I said, I had a lot of good people around me growing up. You know, my parents took me here, there, and everywhere. As you know, when you're at grassroots, you rely on them. You know, you don't realise the work they do for you until you get older. You know, had goalkeeper coaches at Boston, parents helping out at Crowland, coach. My dad helped out, bless him. You know, but going back to the whole wanting to play outfield, I think a lot of that came from, I didn't want to do it, yes, but I think the managers sort of helped keep me motivated as well, because they would often say, well, you know, if we're winning 3 or 4-0, you can go up and take the penalty. And I never missed one, you know, so I was hoping, you know, we'd go and win 3 or 4-0, so I'd go and take the penalty, you know, and even back in men's football now, if we get to a penalty shootout, I'll always put my hand up and say, yeah, I'll take one, gaffer, you know. And for me, back then, that was enough. That would keep me motivated. And I'd work on shooting and penalties after training, as well as doing my own goalkeeping. So it was sort of keeping that interest up, you know, keep playing outfield and the technical side of shooting from a dead ball, which also helped me with, you know, goal kicking.
Yeah, obviously you practicing free kicks as well. Does that help you in your goalkeeping to think like a striker might be thinking about where they're going to put it as well?
Definitely.
You know, it goes hand in hand.
I remember doing a session once with when I was at Crowland, and I asked 3 parents to stand in the wall just to make it harder for me. So I'd purposely position myself in an unnatural position to make it harder. You know, and it helped. You know, you just, even back then, you just create things that help you, and you don't realise it. You think it's a bit of fun and games, but back then I can remember just asking to do extra work and extra shooting, extra free kicks. But when you, going back to when you take the free kick, it sort of, like I said, it does put you in that mental space where you think that you're acting as an attacker and you're thinking, right, where am I going to go? Where's it best for me? Where's the goalkeeper standing? You know, and it puts you in their shoes. It definitely helped growing up through the levels of, you know, the pyramids of football.
Decent. So from grassroots, you end up going to Posh.
Yep.
How many seasons did you have with Posh?
2. So I was there at 15 and 16 until the December as an under 16, where it came to scholarships and I got let go. And that's how Boston came up.
Yeah, I believe it's, in fact, it was actually my first manager at the community scheme at Boston who brought you in. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. Brett.
Mr. Brett Whaley. He's currently manager of
Wisbech Town.
Wisbech Town. So Brett brings you in because he knew you from the Peterborough days.
Yeah.
What was it like to join Boston? Was there a different atmosphere? You know, was it very, very different to what you was getting at Posh?
Not as a 16, no.
No.
As a 16, I was quite shy. You know, I was very, very quiet. I just went in. I was on trial, so I didn't know anybody. I think I played 1 game against York City over RAF Cranwell, and Steve Welsh, as I'm sure we'll touch on, he just pulled me and my dad into the office and said, yeah, we want to sign you on a scholar for next year. And I think 3 days before, Posh had let me go, you know, and at the time, Boston were a League 2 club, so it was massive. You know, it was that security and that pathway that I wanted to go, you know, going forwards.
Yeah, so from ultimately you obviously trialing with Boston, you actually get taken on. You join our college youth team program.
Yeah, there was a few hiccups as well, funnily enough, because at the time when Boston offered me the scholar, obviously the first team were in League 2, and this was the year that they got relegated, unfortunately, into the conference. And over the summer there was a big, it was very up in the air whether the scholarship program was going to continue.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up going back to Peterborough on a non-contract for, I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks at the start of pre-season, while, because I remember Welshie saying, guys, we're not sure if we can offer you this scholarship program.
Yeah, lots of uncertainty.
Yeah, so I went back to Posh on a non-contract. you know, and then I remember Welshie ringing us saying, "Yeah, we've got the go ahead. What do you want to do?" Because I'd been let go by Posh, went to Boston. Boston had no fault of their own, wasn't sure what they could do, so I went back to Posh. And in the end, I went back to Boston on the scholar, and it was a great decision. I was really unsure about it. It took me a good few days at 16 to commit to it, because it's a big commitment. But it was the right decision, and it was one that I relished.
Jay said the other day, didn't he, that you have to make huge decisions, don't you? When you're a young player, it must be so hard. I don't know, because I've not played, but it must be so hard to make some of them decisions that you have to make.
Oh yeah, it was really difficult, Cookie. Like, I remember at the time, you know, you leave school and you've got a foundation of mates, and at the time I was going to go into digs, so I was going to be moving from Peterborough to Boston, which, although it's not far, it's an hour, but you know, back then it was a lot. And again, there was uncertainty whether I was going to go into digs or not, and it was a really stressful, looking back on it now, and messy situation. So I just made the decision, in terms of accommodation, and my parents, that for the first 6 months until I passed my test, they would, my dad would take me in the mornings to training and to games and stuff, or where we'd meet the minibus. So it was a massive commitment for him as well, you know, because he still worked, so he'd have to leave extra early to take me. I'd be in Boston sometimes for 8 o'clock in the morning, waiting outside in the car park for it to be open, for John Blackwell to open the change rooms, so getting the warm, you know, as Dad nipped off to work, you know, and then financially it was a bit of a burden. So I remember it was about an hour and a half journey home. So I remember some boys would, especially some of the older lads who passed their test before me, they'd be home within 15 minutes. I'd have to walk into Boston Town Centre, get a bus from Boston to Spalding, I think it was, then go from Spalding to Crowland, where my dad would pick me up, or I'd go Spalding into Peterborough, then from Peterborough to Whittlesea, then walk home. So sometimes I'd be out the house from 8 till 6 some nights before I passed my test, and that was, you know, thinking about it now, it was torture, especially in the winter months.
But that's a good life lesson, and it sets you up, because you've sort of been thrown into that mix. You know, you're waiting where you don't know what time you're going to be let into the ground. Luckily for you, John Blackwell and Jason used to be at York Street for 8:30, earliest. But you know, it's a lot of, there's a life skill behind it. You grew up a lot quicker. That's probably you know, why you're probably more mature than some of the others. And you know, it's something that the young guys nowadays can take on board. I know with the 19th we have a few lads who commute by train because of the distance what they're travelling in. But you know, fair play to you for you know, making and having that dedication to be that scholar, because that's what it's what it entailed, didn't it?
Yeah.
Back then. So with the youth team, and obviously the bad news of us getting relegated at that time as well, and the uncertainty and stuff. Yeah. Youth team days, as I said to Jay's, probably the best days of your playing career, probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. If you want to just touch on some of the youth team stuff, obviously shout out to Steve Welsh, who was running the program.
Yeah, Welshie was fantastic. I cannot hold him in more high regard. He was absolutely brilliant for all the boys. You know, I think starting as a youth team, it was, if I'm honest with you, I hated it a little bit the first 2 or 3 months, because I was sort of the outsider, where I'd come in from Peterborough and all the other boys, I think we had about 6 or 7 in the end. John O, Nick Jackson, Mitch Griffiths, Alex Beck, they'd all been together through the whole pathway of Boston Centre of Excellence. So they all knew each other, and all of a sudden I've just come in. I think they released the goalkeeper at Christmas for 16, as a 16, sorry, and this new lad's come in, and you know, and to be fair, I remember it to this day. I think the boys didn't take to me quite quickly. They didn't take to me quickly, sorry. I think part of that was my own fault, because I'd come from Posh, and they thought I was a bit, not a snob, but I'd been at a high level club, and it wasn't like that at all. And I remember coming in and saying, at the end of the day, chaps, I'm just here to get a pro deal. And I remember it was like my 5th day, and I don't think it went down very well at all, if I'm completely honest. And that was the harsh reality of it. I was very selfish back then, and yes, it's quite immature, and it probably, looking back on it now, it probably set me in the wrong regard with the dressing room initially. But that's all I wanted. I just wanted a pro deal, and I think you say, there's no, and I said, there's no friends in football. There's not. I'm lucky that I do speak to a lot of those boys even now to this day, because they're still around the non-league scene. But that comment, it did hinder me for a long while, and it took them a little while to sort of open their arms to get me into this group, because it wasn't them having to latch on to me. It was me having to latch on to them, really.
They probably had the same thought though, but probably
Didn't say
it. Didn't say it. Whereas you was, you blurted it out, being the new person, rubbed people the wrong way. They might see you as a bit massive time, and again, you can look back on that, and that's probably something that will come up later in the podcast. Probably what you might change if you was to do it again. So with the youth team, I remember it quite fondly, because obviously, like I said last week, I've been at the club seems like forever. Seeing you guys come through the pathway, and that team what you had, Welshie, it was a very, very good team. Obviously, a lot of them players, as you say, you see and speak to today, just simply because they're still in the game playing. Some have got legendary status at some of the clubs around locally. So good crop of players, good youth team. You pick up good results. You obviously travel up and down the country. Any stories from the road? Any good team stories, either from the road or what it went? Obviously, keep it clean, because some of the kids might be listening.
Of course. I think the minibus was a story. You go travelling up and down the country, meeting at silly o'clock in the morning to get to. I remember we went to Darlington on Sunday morning. We played at. I don't think it was Darlington. I think it was Hartlepool, and we were up at like 6:30, meeting at 6:30 in the morning, or 7 at Sleaford. And just the crack on the minibus was fantastic. We'd play games. That was a massive part of it. I know also we had this little thing when I was a first year scholar. The second years had this thing where they'd call you to box. So if they told you to do something like a chore, like a cleaning chore, and you didn't want to do it, even though it was their chore, they'd say, right, put the gloves on then, and that would settle who would do the chore. I remember once I only called the gloves once as a first year. That was to JD, James Davis, and I can't remember how that went. And then the gloves, as when I became a second year, it became more of a just call the gloves. It wasn't even to do with chores. It was just if you disagreed with something in training, or someone hit you with a bad tackle, or I've gone up to catch it. Right, we'll get the gloves on when we get back. We'll sort it out that way. And there was a few, I'm not going to name names, but I remember one individual who was, I think he was a 16 at the time. I hit him quite hard. There was a video going around at the time. He got knocked out quite badly. And that was, it was all to do with the camaraderie between the boys. It was good. It was fun. It would bring the boys together. That's a good story. What else do we do? We used to go to.
They're quite lucky, that person, because I've actually got 2 names down here who I sort of know about from obviously speaking to you. It's not just a thing that Boston United condone. I don't think it doesn't happen today, by the way, for anyone listening. So your under 16s or under 18s are safe at the club. Just to put it out there. What about when? You got any stories from when you used to go to the RAF bases? I know Welshie liked to take you boys. Again, it was probably you probably saw it as quite military, but at the same time, there was a meaning behind it. If you want to just talk about that.
Yes, we did that. I think it was around Christmas both years as a scholar, and initially we're like, oh, God, why are we going there for? You know, it's in London. You know, it's a night away. You know, we're playing against men. We're probably going to get hurt. But it was fantastic. You know, both times. I can't remember the first time so much, but the second time we had some of the under 16s who came, and we had a few of the college boys as well come with us, and we'd go out after we'd play the game. I think we won 2-0 or something the second time round, and we would go out in Watford, have a curry, have a few beers. I think the club, luckily, which was really nice, paid for it, I think. And then we'd get back. Welshie would probably swan off to his B&B up the road, and there would be us in in the RAF barracks, you know, single bed, mattress the size of, you know, a couple of inches, cold, you know, freezing it. And a lot of the lads would just pull all night. I remember one night we managed to get our hands onto some alcohol somehow, and a few of the lads we just end up just mucking around, you know, back then, and dancing and singing and pulling all nighters. And yeah, that was a really good bonding.
And I bet it wasn't a pleasant experience the next day when you was getting put through some of the drills.
Yeah, well, I remember the second time. I think, well, she was so shocked. We ended up going back, making a detour on the way back to the ground. We went up to RAF Cranwell, and he had his hill running. So, that was Welshie all over. That was, but yeah, those nights away were brilliant.
You wouldn't change them for the world, would you?
No, not at all.
So obviously we have a few people who listen to who are on our college course. How did you find the scholarship college course? Did you enjoy it? Was it something for you? Did you get anything out of it?
Yeah, I loved it. You know, we were in all day Tuesday in college, based at the ground, and then on a Thursday afternoon then the Thursday morning as well. So we'd have a day and a half a week where we'd be focusing on our studies. So we do our BTECs, our NVQs, sporting excellence, that sort of thing. And then alongside that, we do our level 2 football qualification, which we did that. I think that was predominantly second year, I think it was.
Yeah, I think we'd have done probably level 1 would have got level 1 football, and then as the years went on, you got the higher qualification, didn't you? Level 2.
Yeah. So we did that the second year. We had a guy called, I can't think what was his name. He came in. Did
you have Ruddy?
No.
Did you have Keith Rudd?
No, I want to say Paul. I can't think what his name is, but he went on to manage Birmingham City, Derby County. Gary Rowett, that's who it was. Gary Rowett came in and delivered it, and I think he was part of Burton Albion's setup at the time, sort of like youth team level, and he'd do his FA coaching on the side, and it was fantastic, you know. And I remember a couple of years later, I see this Gary Rowett on the screen managing Burton. I thought, where do I know him from? You know, and next thing you know, he's got the Burton job. He'd been at Derby, Birmingham. I'm not sure if he's managing anymore. But yeah, that's how he came to deliver our level 2, which was an eye opener. And then that, as part of the level 2 coaching football, we had to get some hours of like after school clubs and deliver it. So that's how I came across yourself, doing some voluntary hours with you. That was on a Thursday morning, I think. Eventually,
Thursday morning across at Stickney School it was, and out of all the players, Cookie, I had to think, why have they sent the guy from Peterborough? There's lots of lads who live closer, but it was just simply it got offered to him, and Butch was mature enough to say, "I'll do it." And he used to travel, and in fact, sometimes he used to be in the car park waiting for me, even though I used to get there early. He was there before me. He was keen and mustard, so I thought this guy might have a future in coaching, which we'll come to in a little bit. So yeah, you got my seal of approval. So if we go off the youth team stuff, and now you've entered into the first team. So if you say about how you got into the first team, how it did come about, who gave you the phone call, obviously how did you find out to go into the first team, and then I will fire away Christian's stats on you. because I know you're a bit of a stat man. You know stuff about yourself. So if you just touch on that for us, Butch.
Yeah, well, again, as a 16, all the scholars, first year, second years, were made to sign forms anyway. So we were already part of the first team. And I think as well, the club got relegated from League Two into which is the conference now, or National Premier. And then I think that we had obviously some money problems. So we've got demoted again into the Conference North. So it was a massive overhaul of players. And I sort of said, well, she was like, do you want to go train with the goalkeepers? I think, who do we have at the time? I think it might have been, initially it was Chris Wright, I think.
Right, yeah.
Lad, good guy, Chris. So me and him would train Tuesday, Thursday evenings. So I'd train with the youth team during the day and then go off to Cranwell or Sleaford, or even sometimes on the pitch Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's sort of how it came about. I was just consistently there at training Tuesday, Thursdays, just knowing that my face was there and being a person in the group. You know, I got to know a lot of the lads. Obviously, there was some real experienced pros. You know, there was Paul Ellender, Stuart Tolbert.
Was it at the time? Did we have at the club? Did we have Nathan Abbey when Chris was there?
I think not when I was there. No, I think he might have left maybe the season.
Right. I thought Chris might have been Nathan's understudy, but again, I'm just thinking back to timeline. Obviously, we're quite fortunate. We see Chris quite regularly when the sessions are on, because he brings his little lad to us, who I think's got no desire of playing in goal, a bit like Chris. So you've got obviously Chris Wright, who you're training with, that dedication, etc. So your form's already signed. It wasn't like Welsh give you the call up saying you're going to go with the first team. There was an opportunity laid out to all of you to go and join in, which I think was quality. Right, I know you were saying to me the other day, actually, of the person who gave you your debut, which was Tommy.
Yeah.
That was when the club had to be reformed after everything what had gone on. Let's fire away on your stats, Butch. So,
here we go.
Christian sent me the stats over. So you made 30 appearances for the Pilgrims. You made 2 appearances in the 07-08 season, 21 appearances in the 08-09. You made 5 appearances in the 09-10 season, and then the 2010-11 season, you made 2 appearances. Out of all those appearances, how many clean sheets did you get?
Oh,
He'll probably know this, Cookie, as well.
I think the season where Welshie took charge, I think we played 18. I think I played 18 or 19 games in the league. I think I kept 10 clean sheets, I think. So I want to say about 15, I would say.
Oh, close. So you got 16 clean sheets.
Oh, is it the post?
Yeah. 16 clean sheets. That's not bad out of 30 appearances overall.
No.
So your debut was as a sub versus Butch?
Southport.
In December 2007, that's correct. Your first start for the club was away at
Redditch.
Good.
Yeah.
In March 2008. And the last bit what he sent me was Aaron played last 16 games of 08-09 season under Welshie. He played in the Unibond League Cup and Lincolnshire Shield finals that Boston won in 2010, keeping clean sheets in both games versus Retford and Grantham. So a little ripple there, Cookie.
Yeah, not bad.
Like that. So yeah, how was the experience of being the first team? Obviously, Tommy giving you debut. Obviously, these are all accolades, but how was it being around the place?
Oh, it's fantastic. You know, Tommy was really, really good. He was a very good manager. He knew his stuff. Very laid back at times.
Yeah.
But it was a great atmosphere. You know, the club had been through turmoil probably the 3 or 4 months before that. That's when obviously Mr. Newton, Boston legend, must I say, he came in and saved the club. Tommy got the gig, and it was a really, really positive experience. Obviously, there was the drive for the club to work its way back up the leagues, and that was sort of nailed into the players from early on. You know, that everything was there. You know, you've got people coming from, you know, places which have like Dog and Duck FC. You know, when you come to Boston and you're like, wow, it was a league club last season.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what attracted some of the players back to the club.
No, it's you know, that was a difficult task in that season. Very, very difficult task. Obviously, working at the club at the time, you just didn't know what was going to happen. So much uncertainty, and you know, to actually see an 11 be put out, and like I say, you had some really good players come in. Obviously, I think the legend Tony Crane, he came into that side, which, you know, if he wasn't the size that he was, one hell of a player, even back then. You know, I think Ash Nichols as well was another influential player.
Lee Thompson as well. I think he played for the club.
Yeah, Lee Thompson.
You know, David Galbraith. You know, and then on top of that, Tommy managed to keep Ellie, Paul Ellender, and Tolbs. I think I don't know how that worked out, because I think there was a few contract issues.
He signed a contract extension just before.
Yeah. So having those two, you know, figureheads of, you know, in the dressing room really spearheaded the direction of where Tommy wanted to take the club. You know?
And they were, and Tolbs especially was at a point of his career where, you know, he was giving back now to the younger generation coming up, and you still had that spine. You had Chris, the goalkeeper, obviously yourself coming through. You had Ellie, you had Tolbs, and then you could sort of try and mould the team around it. And you know, it was a difficult task. So, you know, I take my hat off to Tommy for doing what he did at that time. Any highs or lows for you, really? Was there any loan spells which you got sent out on?
Yeah, well, obviously it was difficult because I was sort of, the first year as a first year scholar, I was sort of flickering between the youth team and first team, like being a sub. So I did get sent out on loan. I think I went to Hull Beach, Deepin, Boston Town, just to fill in for. I think I went for a month at Town. I think I had a few games at Deepin, a few games at Hull Beach, and back then I was like, "Oh my God, what is this?" But now, like looking back on it, it was such a great experience for me to get men's football, because when you're playing in the Puma Youth Alliance against the likes of Bradford, you know, Hartlepool, Mansfield, you know, everyone wants to play. You know, everyone, and you get hurt, don't get me wrong, but you don't get balls putting you on the box. You know, for a goalkeeper, that's one of the main aspects of your game, to come and take crosses and that sort of stuff. And you wouldn't really get that. So being chucked in men's football, where you've got people standing on your toes, you know, at corners, like pinching you, elbowing you in the stomach. It was a real learning curve. And initially it was like I said, it's difficult going to these places, but looking back on it now, it was such a massive learning curve for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was never going to be pretty, especially when you're playing non-league and smash mouth football, a bit like the conference is, and Unibond, which we was in at the time. So you played for a few managers at the club, Tommy being one. You had obviously Rob Scott, Paul Hurst. Who was the other ones you played for?
Welshie,
yeah. Which she got the great stat under. Did you play for Drury? No. So which one out of them? I know obviously Welshie's got a soft spot in your heart, but obviously from first team experiences only, who would you probably say was your favourite if you had to choose? Splitting it.
Tough one. I'd probably have to say Welshie. You know, Welshie got the job at I think it was December, January time, the second season, my second year scholar, and you know, he saved the club. I think we got something like I think in the 18 or games I played, from what I can remember, I think we took like 30 points from out of 50, which spearheaded us up the table and managed to save relegation. And then that's obviously the chairman had a big decision to make whether Steve and Andrew Stanhope at the time was going to get the job or whether they were going to look elsewhere. And it turned out, obviously, Scotty and Hurst got the job. And they were fantastic. Like, their methods of training were great. It didn't really, looking back on it now, I think there were things which, if I went back in time, how things worked with them, I think it would have been different for me. I think I'd have made a decision to go or not to sign, if I'm honest. But in terms of them as managers and what they did on the training pitch and, you know, the rapport in the dressing room, it was fantastic.
And obviously with Scotty and Hurst, obviously good cop, bad cop, I think it was. I think that was clear to the fans. They got results and they got us promoted, and ultimately you was part of that. What about the experience of being with that team and obviously gaining promotion away at Bradford? Yeah, that was probably one of the best seasons I've been a part of. You know, I didn't play as much as I'd like. Well, I didn't play as much as I'd like. I'll be quite frank with it. You know, but it was a great experience. There were some real good footballers in that team who have gone on and bettered themselves even now. You know, Sean Pearson, Ricky Miller, just to name a few off the top of my head. Yeah, no, it was a fantastic season to be a part of, and then obviously they went to grow the team again, and then what happened with Rob and Paul, the rest is history. And to be fair, they was always going to go a lot higher, and obviously they did. So with the first team stuff, what I did last night, I went to one of the Boston supporters, who I know really well. He plays in my over 35s group, which is Michael Beefy Burgess, which is his nickname. And he came up with three great questions because I was saying he was coming on today. So we'll fire away with question number one. He put, can you describe what it was like to play under Rob Scott and Paul Hurst? Obviously, in his opinion, they were arguably the best gaffers in recent times. And who did you learn the most from?
Wow. So I think, well, but it's difficult because they, like I said, they were sort of they were Jekyll and Hyde, you know. Rob would be very much the motivator, the loud, the aggressor of the two, and Paul would be the one who'd put your arm around you. You know, but it was great to play for. It really was. What was the first part of that question again?
It was obviously. Can you describe what it was like to play under?
Well, I didn't play as much as what I would have liked.
It was probably being more around the place, and I think obviously going from that questions and like, who did you learn the most from? I think it was probably the information of what was you a person who, if Rob was screaming and trying to motivate you, did that motivate you, or did Paul Hurst's softer approach? You know, probably talking a bit more technically with you, did that rub off on you better?
Yeah, Hursty, I was one of the players back then who I'd deal better with that arm around. You know, at 16, 17, 18, a goalkeeper, and you're going to make mistakes. And you know, if Rob had done his approach with me, I think I'd have just crumbled. You know, a lot different now. I prefer that approach now, being more experienced and a lot older. But like I said, both of them, I learned things off both of them.
Yeah, and Michael's second question was, what were the main ingredients of success which formed the fantastic midfield duo of Danny Sleeth and Anthony Church? What players they were, by the way.
Yeah, fantastic. I think for them, they knew each other I think they were at Loughborough Uni. So they'd spend most days with each other. They played for the Loughborough Uni team together. So I think that's why that worked so well, because they knew each other so well off the pitch. But I think, you know, as a group of players, we got on really well. There was a really good camaraderie between us. We'd go through brick walls to get 3 points.
Yeah.
And I think that's what rubbed up. I think that's what rubbed up on the team in the end. I think the fans could see that there was a real togetherness of this unit, and it was at some stage of the season, it was a real juggernaut. It was, full steam ahead. We would win and we'd win and we'd win and we'd win. And it might be 1-0 or it might be 2-1. And I can remember some games where we'd score 2 in the 90th minute just because of that camaraderie and that willing to fight and to just get 3 points at all costs with each other. Yeah,
and it obviously benefited that we had Mark Newsham about as well, who knew where the back of the net was.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Danny, I think Danny used to get told to slow down a little bit, didn't he? Because he was that fit. Yeah. When he wanted to do a cool down, he wanted to go and climb a mountain or something like that. And
one of the fittest guys I've ever seen in my life, by the way. It was a joke. I remember the first pre-season in the Rob and Paul, we would do laps of this cricket boundary at Cranwell, and it'd be like a 12-minute run. And,
yeah.
I can remember overtaking some of the players. I'm not going to say who they were.
Yeah, they should be embarrassed.
I was fit, but I'd lost a lot of weight since then, so I was quite fit. But I think he came to pre-season with a rucksack on his back and would run doing that 12-minute run with the rucksack on. So that would be the warm-up. We'd then go and do box-to-boxes and pitch sprints with Rob and Paul, and then we'd go and do that 12-minute run again to finish. And we're all dying after the first one. Sleepy's there just with his rucksack on, as if it's a warm-up.
Yeah. Any chance of sweating?
Yeah.
Wow. I probably still stay as a fan, as a spectator. I one of the best debuts was Anthony Church. It was a midweek game, night game. He was fantastic. So no, that was question number 2. And the last question from Michael. Did you want to ask it, Cookie?
No, you got it. I've not got the thing.
Notes in front of it.
I've not got the notes.
Which player of that squad? Which player of the squad influenced you the most?
Of the Scott and Hurst.
Yeah, of that squad. Yeah.
Good question.
Good question.
Yeah, I think.
Was it the other goalkeeper?
That's what I was going to say. Naturally, you'd sort of lean towards the other goalkeeper, but Tom Evans that first year was. Yeah. If I'm honest with you, we sort of diverting off the question a little bit. We sort of rubbed off on the wrong path because I played all pre-season that first year. Literally all pre-season. I think he came in one game before the end and then started the first season where, if I'm honest with you, it sort of now it rubbed me up a little bit. It got me quite angry. I played all pre-season. I know Rob and Paul I turned down other clubs to sign for Boston. I remember obviously that season when we was in the Unibond Prem, when Welsh we stayed up. I remember that I remember a couple of weeks before the start of before the end of the season, Welshie and David Newton pulled me in the boardroom at Jakeman's and offered me a contract. I was like, wow, that's for me, as I said previously in the call, that's all I wanted, a pro contract at 18. And I thought about it, and in the end I ended up signing it. But then about 2 days after that, I got about 3 phone calls from clubs. I had someone ring me from Macclesfield, wanted me to go there. I'd said I'd sign a contract, so they were like, no. Another club, I think it was Bradford, wanted me to go there. But again, found out I'd signed a contract, didn't want anything to do with me. Spoke to Rob and Paul, and they were like, look, you've got a chance to be our number 1. You signed the contract. We don't want you to go anywhere. You'll play games. Brilliant. When you get told stuff like that as a 17, 18-year-old, you believe it. And then I remember Ipswich Town ringing. I think they went through the club. I think because they knew I was on a contract, they went through the proper processes. And I'd agreed to go on a trial that summer when Rob and Paul had taken over. Everything was booked, hotel. I don't even know if you know this story, Lou. And yeah, everything was booked, the dates, the lot. And literally the day before I was due to go down so this was a Saturday, I was due to go down on the Sunday for the trial on the Monday. I came down with swine flu. This was obviously back then, it was a big thing.
It wasn't a massive pandemic, was it, Budge?
No. It was, it was a big old thing even back then, 10, 13 years ago. Rang up Ipswich and they said, okay, don't worry, when you're fit and healthy, we'll have you back. No, didn't hear anything else. I rang them back in a couple of weeks, said I was fit and ready to go, and they'd already signed somebody. So, yeah, sorry we've diverted the question off a little bit, but that was a big thing for me. Rob and Paul had said, you'll play games. I'd turned down big clubs, or bigger clubs back then who were in the Football League, had this trial off Ipswich, but no one wanted to have anything to do with me because I signed this contract. So
it's all down to decisions, isn't it? Like you said earlier in the call. And, if only he had that crystal ball. It was the same with Jace last week when he was speaking. He played every single pre-season game. And then when we came to do his stats weren't which we thought they were going to be like. But
and that's happened 2 years in a row as well. That's what really infuriated me. So it happened the first year with Tom. Tom, was a great guy. But going back to your original question, you're probably looking at Lee Canaville, Sean Pearson, who was a different animal at 19. I'd never seen anything like it. He'd come from Stamford, won every accolade there was at Stamford the previous year, jumped up 2 leagues as if it was boys football to men's football. He took it in his stride. And then
he was very well supported. His family, he had a good backing, didn't he? Real nice family, Sean. And to be fair, he was another one, like you say, good influence, influential player. He was always destined, wasn't he, to go higher. Top guy. So we've covered the questions. Thanks for Michael Beefy Burgess.
A little bit there.
It's all right. He'll love that because he's Boston. He's Boston through and through. He'll be putting that on the supporters group. No, he's got his questions in. So going on to the next bit in the running order, which I sort of prepped you for because I know it's quite a big thing, and I think you found it tough. I wanted to call it 2 to 11. Sort of dawned on me last night when Carragher, I think, was doing it with Chris Coleman. He did a 1 to 11, and I was like, that'd be quite good for Butch tomorrow. But I'm calling it 2 to 11 because hopefully you're going to pick yourself to play in goal. And actually, Butch earlier messaged me saying he's even got subs, so we might have a 2 to 15. So, Butch, you've prepped it. Let's hear it. So this is based on players you played with during your time at Boston, throughout the youth team to the first team. Let's see for the supporters in there. Let's see what he's got.
I'm going to sit on the fence initially. I've got to say it was really, really, really difficult. Awesome players, and if any of the lads who are watching and I don't pick you, I'm sorry. But yeah, it was really a challenge. So I've gone 4-3-3.
Nice.
I've gone 4-3-3. So he'll hate me for putting him there, but right back I've gone Lee Canaville. I know he flipped between centre half and right back with Scotty and Hursty. I know he didn't like playing right back, but he did a job. And you'll probably see why I've put him there, because as centre half I've got Sean Pearson. I can't not pick him. I think he's at Wrexham now, club captain. He's gone on to have a stellar career. Great guy. He's captain material wherever he plays. And centre half with him I've got Paul Ellender. So when I came into the team initially as a second year scholar, he played centre half, and in playing behind him was easy because he would just do so much. He would talk. It was like having another me, but outfield he wouldn't shut up. But he was a real leader, and I don't think I need to say anything more about Ellie, to be honest. Left back I've gone Gareth Jellyman. Jellyman's thrown a wobbly. Real good friends with Gels even now. Used to work with him for about 5-6 years after I left Boston. So that's my back four. Midfield three, obviously I've gone Church and Sleeth. I can't not pick them. I saw Churchy pre-season, actually. We had a pre-season game against him. He's at Chelmsford at the minute, and had a bit of a chat with him, obviously COVID secure at a distance. Before and after the game, he's still himself, we had a bit of a reminiscence of the time at Boston, how much we loved it. And, so I've gone Church and Sleeth. And my third player I've gone is Adam Milson.
Nice.
I don't think Millie got the opportunities he deserved and should have done with Scott and Hurst. I know he broke his leg, or both.
Twice.
Twice. Yeah, one after his right leg, then his left leg, or the other way around. And he didn't really get an opportunity after that, because we played a lot of 4-4-2 with Scott and Hursty. So he would normally was the one who'd miss out. And other players like Mark Cam came in when we played a 3. But he was stellar. He was real Rolls Royce. I remember the year we stayed up, I think he won all the Player of the Year awards at 17. This is in front of players like seasoned pros. Ellie was there still. We had Lee Thompson. You had players like Tom Matthews. So yeah, I can't really say anything more about Millie. Millie was a real great player and really sort of went under the carpet a little bit. And then front three, I've gone.
Sorry, Butch, but going back to Millie as well. Hopefully, he might be one of our future guests as well. With knowing him, and he came in as a schoolboy. He did his studies away from. He wasn't one of the lads day in day out with Boston. He was a schoolboy. So
that's very rare nowadays that a schoolboy and not a scholar sort of makes that step up.
Yeah,
and him and Michael Wood actually as well, who I did consider putting in the team, centre half.
Woody was solid, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he liked to tackle. Woody did.
Oh, Woody did it, and an elbow. Yeah. I was a first year, he was a second year, and he got into the team in Conference North and was playing with Tommy. And I even remember him getting Player of the Month in Conference North at like 17. And he was a schoolboy. Again, he was a schoolboy, so he'd do his studies away from the club. We'd only train once or twice a week, or even if that sometimes, but was throwing Tommy through both of them in.
The problem is with Woody, he suffered with the injuries, didn't he? He used to pick up. I think it was a style of play. It was that physical. Mm-hmm. It probably paid dividends on him, and I think he had a knee problem. If I think back, but who you gone for in the next three?
So I've gone Tapin Noosh, Mark Noosham. Don't need to say anything. Don't need to say.
He's on fire.
Don't need to say anything about Nui. Great guy. I've come across him in the lower leagues over the last couple of years. I know he was at Sheffield FC for a bit, so it's just good to see him. And then I've gone Ryan Semple, right wing. Again, seasoned pro, looked after himself incredibly well on and off the pitch. Dynamic, fast, could put balls in the box, could run in behind, could score goals. So he's on one side, and through the middle, a player who didn't get a rubber green of it with Scott and Hurst, Ricky Miller. Good friend of mine, Ricky. Back then, even now, it's good to catch up with him. I know he's had his struggles away from football, but he's had a stellar career. He's been at Luton, Port Vale, Posh, Peterborough. He's now at Aldershot.
Well, yeah, we were sort of hoping at Boston. We had our fingers crossed that Rick scouted him again, but no, it wasn't meant to be. I think he lives down there as well, doesn't he? So.
Yeah, he lives that way, and Rick got sort of the wrong end of the deal when when Rob and Paul came in. I think the chairman had obviously offered him a contract to stay for that season, obviously under that dilemma of who the new manager was going to be. Ricky planned to sign it, and then Rob and Paul came in, and I think they significantly cut his money. And I don't just mean like 20 quid. I think you're talking, I don't know, over 3 figures, put it that way, back then. Which, you can't blame him in a way, but Ricky had scored goals that year to keep us up, and I had a similar sort of thing happen to me where my money got cut. It wasn't nowhere near as much as what the figures he was talking. He was goal scorer. But I think if you'd have put him in that team that year, you know, I know we got promoted through the playoffs, but if Ricky would have stayed, we'd have won the league. You know, he was horrible. He could put the ball in the box. It was just a nuisance all game. You know, and as a 3, you guarantee goals and work rate with those 3.
Yeah, definitely. Good team. Great team.
Yeah, like that.
Thank you. And then have actually got some subs as well. So
these are subs for sitting on the fence.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got 5 subs. So I've got Wes Parker, again season pro.
Yeah.
Centre half, left back, right back, centre midfield, could do anything. He's in there. I've got Ben Sedgemore, who wasn't at the club for long. Welshie and Stano brought him in the year we stayed up on the last game of the season. But again, another season pro, just didn't give the ball away. You know, I think it was like 34, 35, but he was a real professional. We used to travel in with Ben to some of the games sometimes, and you know, just again hearing some of the stories and about him, how he'd look after himself, things he would do away from football. Definitely was a big learning curve for me. And then I've got David Farrell. Again, don't need to say anything about Faz. And then I've got 2 more. I've got Swizz, Spencer Ware Daly. Again, another guy who knew where the back of the net was.
That's Cookie's favourite player, by the way.
Swizz,
yeah. When I was a kid, yeah.
Great guy. Very an orthodox sort of mold. You don't really see strikers in that mould these days, but tell you what, you give him the ball and he was 6 yards out, you knew it was going in the goal. So he's unfortunately missed out. And my final one is Big Danny Davidson. Don't know if you can remember him, guys, but he was a real target man, you know, held the ball up well. And between him and Mikel Suarez that year we got promoted, it was fantastic. You'd always play, a lot of the time it'd be one of them and Newey up there as a 2. And I just went for Danny just because I just thought he offered a little bit more, you know, all round.
I actually got to see Danny. It was a couple of seasons ago in the FA Youth Cup. We took the 19s, the under 18 team to Mickleover, and Danny was running the team that night. It was literally a few days after somebody at Mickleover got on Sky and everywhere for scoring an absolute worldie. I can't remember his name, but Danny took the team that night, and he just held the club in so high regard. He's asking about all the people there, if the staff was still there and stuff. So I think people who do come to Boston, I do think we leave a bit of a presence, a memory in these players. So, which is quite nice to know. It's quite sentimental. So that's a good team. Is that all the subs, Butch? You just gone for 5?
I've got 4. And then obviously goalkeeper. I haven't put a goalkeeper on there, but James McEwen would be my goalkeeper. He was fantastic. I think I don't know what he kept a lot of clean sheets second year. Again, came in late pre-season. I played all the pre-season, and then 2 days before the start, he come in. Actually come across Jim at Posh when I went back to Posh from Boston in my youth as a 16. He was on trial for the first team. I think they signed him from Walsall in the end. So I sort of already knew Jimmy.
Yeah.
But again, great pro. Again, having a stellar career. I think he's still at Grimsby, club captain.
Club captain.
Great guy as well. Travelled in. There was a little car school. Me, him, Gels, Semps. We'd obviously travel in from Peterborough.
Surely not in your little Clio.
Not sometimes, yeah. Sometimes.
No wonder you needed a stretcher when you got to training.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know.
3-door. Wow. So, is that all the players, Butch?
Yeah. Unfortunately, unfortunately.
That's a ferocious team, by the way.
What a team that is, hey? I wouldn't like to see the wage bill or the budget. Wow. So, no, I appreciate you doing that. To be fair, I did prep you for a non-league one as well, but you'd just be there forever, I think, picking people. So, so we've obviously come full circle, and obviously we're now in current day. Obviously, we'll talk stuff pre-COVID. So the team. So you played for Boston. Obviously, when you left, and obviously this isn't in order. So the teams that you ended up playing for, which is so pleasing for me and obviously like Cookie as a fan, that people like yourself are still playing in the game today. This is why we're getting people on, like Jason and yourself, because you've made something out of the pathway coming through different routes, through the youth programs to the first team, and are still playing today and making a part-time living out of it. So you played for Corby, Ilkeston, where I think you was on a bit of a deal there as a goalkeeping coach, if I'm right. You played for March, Wisbeach. Correct me on, I don't know which way to say this. Is it Ainsbury or Ainsbury?
Ainsbury, you're right, yeah.
Deepin. Obviously, you had a spell at Boston Town, which you spoke about earlier, on loan on a Holbeach. You played for PSL, which is Peterborough Sports, and are currently, which you've had about 2 or 3 spells here at your current club in Stepford, which is Yaxley, which I know you love being, and it's just around the corner from you, which is ideal. After football, you sorry, not after football because you're still playing, but whilst you were still playing, you was working for United in the community scheme, football in the community at Boston United, which you did a stellar role. And I'm going to ask it out right now. Did you coach Cookie? Can you remember Cookie?
Yeah,
when he was in next school?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You didn't make an impression on him because he couldn't remember you.
It's a long time ago, writing.
You know, he's a big enough guy. He was playing for the first team, and I can't believe he couldn't remember you. But even after Boston, when you was playing for teams, you were still working for us. You was travelling in. You know, you got my vote of approval, especially when you came in as such a young lad, dedicated to come and coach, which was obviously my livelihood, and I didn't want anyone to mess that up. So always a professional guy. Did you enjoy your time at Boston, doing obviously what me and Cookie do now, pre-COVID, that is?
Yeah, loved it.
Did you enjoy coaching with the scheme?
Yeah, loved it. If it wasn't for the likes of, the scheme back then, I wouldn't be where I am now, for sure, because, I was so concentrating on going as a pro, and then you've got to quickly find a part-time living. And, that coaching badge that I got enabled me to come and work and volunteer with the likes of yourself and Nath and Rich and James and, people who are friends for life, and no, but I think obviously I left for Ilkeston for about 6 months, and then I came back. I think the 4 or 5 years I was with the scheme, I absolutely adored. And, if it wasn't for the travelling, then I would probably still be there or doing something similar now. But obviously commuting from Peterborough every day to then having to go to the likes of Stickney and, places further than Boston, Swineshead, that sort of thing, it just got too much for me, Lou.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. And obviously you let us all know that you would be taking up a different role, which was very similar to the role which you was doing at the club. Obviously it was gutting because you had a good rapport with the kids. Same as Jace. This is what I said last week. You ended up leaving the community program and going to Premier Sport, which is now called Premier Education, which is actually run by ex-Pilgrim, ex-right winger for the Pilgrims, Dan French. Which when he said he was working for Dan French, I was like, that name rings a bell. And French only had a couple of games for Boston, but he was all right. What I saw, he probably had some stiff competition back when he was playing. And obviously, you spoke earlier in the call about what you're doing now, which is if you want to go on to that.
Yeah. So I'm currently employed by, like I said, local primary school as a PE teacher, unqualified, which means I haven't got the degree. So I went from Premier Sport or Premier Education. I was working in this school full time through the company, and then it just came to a point where they wanted to take me on and themselves rather than pay a third party. So I've been at the school for 8 years. Been working for them as an employed member of teaching staff for 3 now.
Yeah.
And it came to about 2 years ago, where my other half, or my fiance, she's doing a nursing degree, and I wanted just something a little bit fresh. I still wanted to stay in the education, educate in the educational side of work, but I wanted just to branch off. So I'm doing a degree at the minute in early years in education, which is a 3-year degree, which will then enable me, hopefully once I pass my QTS, which is my qualified teacher status, to be a primary school teacher. So, it's worked out nicely. I would like to have done it a little bit earlier on in my career, but circumstances are different.
Yeah, and obviously with doing a BTEC and getting them experiences, probably being at Boston, like you said, set you up, and then you rolled with it with Premier Education, which obviously you branched out to, and then obviously hopefully it's going to make you flourish when you become a qualified teacher, which I'm sure will be a dream for the kids, because I think they already love you as it is. So world's your oyster from there. So that's current times away from it. As I said, you're in step 4 with Yaxley. Loving life there still. Obviously, I know not with snowy times, but
no, love it. No, there's like I said, I've been on and off for a good 5, 6, 7 years, and a lot of the boys there are just like family. At non-league level, you do become real close to them. Through group chats and nights out and that sort of stuff. And a lot of the boys, I absolutely love it there. The manager, the boys, people behind the scenes. It's a really friendly, welcoming club. And it does help that it's on my doorstep. And it's still a good level of football. It's a really good level of football.
And you always had a massive support in your granddad and your family going to games as well.
Yeah. Dad's often, he would always be there. Him and my granddad, even when I was at Boston, would hop on the supporters coach to watch the Pilgrims, whether I was playing or whether I wasn't. Dad's health has never been brilliant, but he picks and chooses when he can get to games now. Granddad, on the other hand, he'll go driving his car 80 years old up to, into Stoke, Birmingham, Derby for games in the midweek. Fortunately, he passed away May last year, which came as a big shock out of the blue. He would always have been there. He would follow me.
What a dedicated backing, and knowing you've got the support of the loved ones around you and stuff like that. Because some people go and like wives, girlfriends not interested, family's not interested. That's their hobby and that's what they do. But having that, it's just a bit of a blessing, isn't it? So
sure.
No, it's fantastic. So I did this on the last podcast, but we want to sort of target the younger generation, and obviously from yourself, who's been there, done it, give any advice. Would you give that guy any advice?
Not that again, righty.
No.
So
I think I've got more hair back then than what I have now, and I haven't got hardly any in that photo there.
it's why he's got the hat on.
We're trying to be nice to here, people.
Yeah.
We're not trying to be nice to people here, right?
So, for any young goalkeepers, obviously, or young people having aspirations of being a goalkeeper, you got any advice and any tips for them?
Go and play football. If you're 17, 18 and you're happy sitting on the bench at a big club, you're not learning. Even now at almost 30, I still think my game's developing. So go and play football. Nothing beats playing it and learning, finding out your strengths, finding out your weaknesses, and, how to adapt to weaknesses to make that weakness not a weakness. Enjoy it, always get involved with the dressing room, the nights out, that sort of stuff, the team bonding.
Just throw yourself into it.
Throw yourself into it. Yeah, say, don't be motivated by money. I know a lot of people are, and I can understand why at the minute with, the circumstances we're living in right now. But, people I know jump ship for an extra £10 or whatever. It's not, if you're not going to enjoy it as much, it's not worth it. Just enjoy football, because there will be a time when, you can't play, or you're not allowed to play, as we are at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, you just knew it as a natural fit. We've got, in fact, we've just got, you might be an outfield and you just don't know whether you've actually got the skills to become a goalkeeper. I know me and Cookie, we run the over 35s, and Ady's boy, young lad called Sam Proctor, local, he went Posh from this area, played for Posh. He's been picked up by Aston Villa. And he actually went to Posh's academy as an outfield player. They were short one game. He got asked to play in goal, and a bit like his dad, who's well, in our eyes, safe hands anyway. He just naturally gifted in goal, and it's just gone on from there. He's got call up to England, so you just never know what is around the corner. And like I say, throw yourself into it, but try at a younger age, try different positions, because you don't know what.
Like Butch just said there, if he didn't throw himself into that situation and went, nah, I'm not playing goal, that would have never happened. So you've got, like you say, you just go out and get some games, go play.
Yeah. But we obviously appreciate your time. I did have down, we're going to talk Liverpool, but we'll save that because they're not in a good position at the minute, are they? So
Foden.
Obviously, we're gonna wrap it up now. But before we do the final wrap up, Cookie, did you want to just talk about your the Just Giving pages?
Oh yeah. So these podcasts are obviously just for your guys' benefit. Me and Righty don't get nothing out of them, or neither do any of the guests. They're just here just to be on the podcast. So we've just set two Just Giving pages up, one for the NHS and one for our community foundation, just because of the excellent work they keep doing. So if you guys like this kind of stuff, just help in any way you can, and we'll keep delivering this content for you.
And as I said to Cookie when he obviously was plugging that, we're just hoping, fingers crossed, we're looking forward to getting an MBE like Marcus Rashford. So please try and we need a title to a name. So, but no, great work. Obviously, Marcus, shout out to Marcus Rashford. So, Butch, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on Off Script, which is obviously the free podcast, as Cookie says. And, we just hope to see you down the road. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Be safe, fans. And, stay safe, stay healthy. And hopefully we will get to your wedding at some point. Okay? Thanks for your time, Butch. Thank you.
Yeah, top man. Thank you.